Hello everybody, and welcome to another One Vision update. Yeah, it feels like every month he's putting out another version, and this time, well, we technically got 3 versions in one day. We got 980, 980A, and 980B. So both A and B are basically bug fix patches, so we'll go ahead and get 980 out of the way first here. So if you're looking for new maps, the 6 temples, the elemental temples basically, got reworked. It seems Forbidden is now crafted using the Ogre Infinium, I think is how that's pronounced. So apparently that drops from any boss. Like the way that crafting seems to have been reworked at this point, or rather the elemental temples have been reworked, is that you basically have to craft the kind of apocrypha stuff. So if we go over here, we see that they need specific materials for all these different ones, and apparently these are things that can get dropped in the temples now. So like primal sparks for the lightning ones, you got primal floods here for this, primal flames, all that kind of thing. So primal materials are apparently going to be used to make this stuff. I would assume this is probably a way to allow for multiples of these to be crafted. But basically all of them are going to drop this craft book, so whichever one you start with. No friggin' way. Okay. Sorry, I just noticed that for the solo, I was going to go through a whole thing to get Star Ion. It might be possible to get it way easier. Anyway, so yeah, Apocrypha books, they're crafted now. They drop these materials as I understand it. Now, moving on. So Primal Orbs are used to craft forbidden magic now that now drop from temple bosses, 1 from low-level story battles, 2 from high-level ones, and random battle versions of the same bosses will have 1, and have 1 more for stealing that requires rank 2. So once again, if you have somebody that's been using steel, funnily enough, I've actually been going through some weird runs on vanilla, and I found some uses for steel there as well. But yeah, there are definitely a lot more uses for steel in One Vision. So realistically, you probably have rank 2 by then, and yeah, so you can go through those temples over and over. There's a reason to go through them for something other than those equipment items there. So there you go. Let's see. A Fallen Angel was added to Chapter 4 for Rampa number 15. Wonder at the Gods Above map drops Primal Dawn and has 1 more to steal. Neat. Okay, so basically that's going to be. Yeah, instead of having to go through the entirety of Sambronza for the solo run, I'm gonna go to Farampa instead. Alright. Neato! Definitely not gonna complain about that. Alright. Gonna bring this one up because this is relevant to a lot of the changes here. Okay, let's see. There's a Lich King added to Pirate's Graveyard number 12 on Holy Ground. Everyone's favorite This Is Where the Good Stuff map is. So it's a random battle with Dark Apocrypha materials. Rockham will also drop them in the story battle, 1 in low-level version, 2 in high-level. By the way, to clarify for anyone who's unfamiliar on the low and high-level split in this game, basically, if your party, like your head, like highest guy in the party that you're sending out is 30 or higher, this is a ballpark, by the way. Every battle has its own, like, break point, but usually it's, like, in the 25 to 32 range. If you end up sending one that's high enough, you get the high-level version. If you're lower than that, you get the basic version. You can usually tell by whether or not they're using accessories. Well, actually, no. You could do that in vanilla. In One Vision it's a bit different, so it's more like if you see that their skill lists and equipment got way more fancy, you're in the high-level version. Anyway, so yeah, it's usually around level 30, so let's just put it that way. Geomancy spells are now crafted using the same crafting book instead of Ars Magna, so it seems like those are also going to be in Ogre Infinium. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Let's see. Temple bosses do not drop crafting books anymore. They've been moved to enemies in battles before the final one. Well, I'm definitely glad I already did that for the solo. The Wukong Blade and the Sekhem will now drop in random battle versions of the Zoshnel and Grezophytes instead of the high-level one, instead of the high-level story battle version. So that's pretty good if you happen to be past that point. I did see a few folks mentioning that one. What the hell's that other one? Like, I know what the Wukong is. So the Wukong is basically a two-hander that you can use one-handed. Pretty decent bonuses on it, but non-elemental and also pretty dang heavy. So pretty situational. Sekhem, I want to say that's an axe, isn't it? Alright, let's see. Is the Sekhem an axe? No, that's the Secret. Alright, fine. Right, the Sekhem is the fist shield. So, yeah, if you wanted to have a shield in each hand, It's the offense shield, so there we go. If you wanted that, that's there now. Alright, what's next? Forgery crafting book now drops from a Gremlin Trickster in Pirate's Graveyard number 5, Ripples of Grief in the random battle version. Okay. I believe that previously was floor 23 of Palace of the Dead. So Forgery is what used to be... what the hell is it called? Just basically the spellbook one. Like, there was no reason to ever get it in vanilla. And then it became the one that gives you all of the class marks and stuff like that for one vision. And yeah, now you get it in the Pirate's Graveyard, which probably makes a bit more sense because they're probably way more likely to run their operation out of the Pirate's Graveyard rather than trying to somehow make it work in Palace of the Dead. Anyway, the Shadow Knight in Farampa, the Frostfen, that had Oathblade's marks and now has Holy Knight or Paladin marks. This will become relevant in a moment here, but yeah, so basically you can unlock the Paladin way earlier by going there. As to why, you'll see. The Starseer, so Astromancer marks, are dropped from the Lore Master in Chapter 4, Farampa number 15, Wonder at the Gods Above. Also, again, to just sort of break these down, the reason that it's mentioning Chapter 4 Farampa or whatever else, different chunks of Farampa open up at every chapter. I'm assuming most folks know that, but it seems like everyone's kind of all over the place as far as what's known about this game or not, so I'm just bringing it up there. Let's see, Broggy's Harp will now drop from a female ethereal vision in San Bronza. Let's see. Broggy's Harp, what are you? Why are you interesting? Alright, let's see. Once used by Broggy, the god of poets, said to possess divine powers. So, Stun Ward, Day of Reckoning, Oglite 2. That thing's pretty snazzy. Where's that thing drop? Yeah. San Bronza, Floating Ruins, floor 15. And in fact, floor 15 in general seems to have... I want to say I saw a couple of other things that dropped there as well. Alright. Then there's a male ethereal vision using a one-handed katana in San Bronza, Floating Ruins, Central Garden, so that's the final map, that now drops the Soul Reaver. All of these special drops mentioned above will always drop, and enemies that have them will always spawn as usual. Now, this will get mentioned later, but the Soul Reaver is different from its previous version. So for that, we're actually going to go down over here. They'll mention this later down the list, but the Soul Reaver essentially brought back the Snapdragon mechanic, because I know myself and a couple other folks were really, really excited to have a custom-named weapon, even if it sucked. So, you know, here's Mr. Disappointer, the warrior. Actually, funny note, so for those unfamiliar with how this mechanic worked, by the way, basically when you used one of these Snapdragon weapons, so Snapdragon as a mechanic has changed throughout the series. Like in the very original, it was just a draconic spell, so pretty easy to mass produce. Then you got it as a one-time use scroll for Knight of Lotus, and then for this one, they changed it so that there were specific weapons that had the Snapdragon effect. Basically what this does is it takes the user, it just crunches them down into a little cube and turns that into a weapon. Basically, the way that they did it for this one is that you had one for every weapon category, and then that, you know, you got a custom weapon of that type. So it copies their attributes, it copies their stats. So if we look over here at one that I had from a earlier run here, this was just a basic generic that got crunched into a sword. Yes, this doesn't really live up to the name. It's fine, ignore that. But anyway, like so if I recall correctly, based on the stats that they have, you get your attack and defense and health and all that kind of thing. I believe it's, I want to say 10% of their maximum health, and then something like half times like 0.4 or something for the stats that it adds. And it just basically slaps all of that into a weapon. They have no secondary effects. Well, in vanilla they didn't have any secondary effect. In this one they do still seem to have the scaling extra hit, so basically just health scaling bonus damage. So it's actually worth using. It's definitely a lot more nifty. But yeah, you can only ever get one. Now, in the vanilla version, they just had one for every weapon type. That you just, like, you got the soul gun, and then you took some random guy. It's like, here you go, you are a gun now. And then the guy just got eaten by his gun, and then somebody else shot him at people. And it was very difficult to try to explain that to their relatives. So, yeah, the Soul Reaver, one-handed sword version of the same deal, basically taking the more series traditional approach of just only having a one-handed sword option. You used to have like an elemental version of every sword in the other two versions of this particular mechanic. But yeah, based on the class, you will get a damage type bonus, you'll get an elemental bonus, and you'll get a racial bonus. Those second two, I could be wrong in this, but I believe they're actually randomized within a criteria of whatever class they are. That's what I was trying to get at earlier. And additionally, if you're wondering why they're naked aside from a void ring, I'm actually going to test right now whether the same logic still applies, wherein the weapon actually takes their current weight into consideration. Because previously in the original version, the way that it would work is it would just take the weight of the current unit. And by the way, the weapon will retain the name of whoever you use it on. Now, I recall them dropping bags originally. They don't seem to do that for this one, so that's nice. Anyway, so we go over here, we use the thing, and there we go. But yeah, originally it would take your current weight into consideration, so right now he had something to the tune of about -15 weight. So he's just gone and disappeared, and we're going to go ahead and retreat. Okay, and here we are. So, as you can see, the guys... so I believe the numbers... I was incorrect earlier. It's about 40% of their current stats that get mashed into the weapon. Somewhere like 40 to 60-something% of their stats. And then you get an attack and defense score based off something or other. Their health and MP are added on here. So this was a basic generic guy. I mean, I will say the description isn't exactly correct. It's more a weapon inhabited by the... well, by the soul of some poor bastard named Disappointer. But either way, it's, you know, it's a pretty good thing. Now, I will say the weight seems to be permanently locked at 21. It doesn't seem to be scaled off of off their current weight anymore. So that guy's weight was -15, and no matter what I equipped them with, the weight was locked at 21. So other than that, it mechanically seems identical to the original. The reason that I'm pretty sure it's this way is because you could actually create a weapon with negative weight and stats like well into the hundreds. You could basically create the best weapons in the game using the Snapdragon mechanic, but A, they were a pain to get a hold of, B, you basically had to have a statistically maxed out character. Their skills played a certain part in it, like I believe if you got some of their augments up it would help, but apparently racial skills didn't help that much. Either way, so one way or another you wind up with something like this here. Pretty neat. I'm glad that it's back, despite it being, relatively nerfed because of how much more difficult it is to get base stats up in this version. I can still see a lot of potential applications for this. But anyway, another cool thing about these, by the way, is just due to the funky way that their overall mechanics worked, it basically instantly disappears any prop items that you hit with it. Niche use, but it's there. All right, moving on. So, next up on the list, equipment. So elemental weapons are a bit stronger relative to physical ones, and you can actually see that pretty strongly over here if we take a look at the swords, because they're the closest here. Your standard endgame store-bought weapons, 112, immediately jumping up to by about 10 to 30 points as soon as you get into the fancy stuff here. It should hopefully be a bit more noticeable. Stuff like the Chrysagram's got its own stuff going on, so it's a bit lower, but, either way. Definitely got a bit of a jump as far as elemental stuff goes. Some of the, super endgame stuff, though, doesn't seem to have changed that much. Actually, a bit of a weird note that I can't help but notice here. It seems like the Dragon Slayer is actually lighter than the Soul Reaver. That's unexpected. I realized it was heavy, but it only dawned on me now just how friggin' heavy that thing is. Oh my goodness. Okay, whatever. Moving on here. So, duration of poison on low-level claws was reduced. That's probably a good thing because it was pretty broken. For those who might have missed it, basically Envenom became the standard poison. Actually, recently been looking at way more vanilla, and I'm a little bit confused as to why we ever thought that poison was weak in the original game. Because, especially around the early game, you could basically get 60 free damage in a huge area with a long range. Anyway, but yeah, so duration on these got lowered. It doesn't mention a specific duration, but I'd assume probably 3 or 4 turns. But yeah, like, poison does something to the tune of like 80 damage per round now. Alright, let's see. Fans don't give you immunity to their status anymore. Katetsu properly gives you one use of Oblivion. One and two-handed version of some weapons have been brought a bit closer in terms of the extra benefits they provide. So swords got overpower. Two-handed got guaranteed +2 overpower at all levels. Axes and hammers got overpower, and katana got the same luck bonus as the two-handed version to compensate for not having deflect. And I believe that was probably to counteract how good parry is in the late game. A lot of stuff has parry bonuses, so kind of gives you a reason to potentially prefer something like a one-hander over here, over, you know, just the sheer hitting power of some of the other stuff. That said, well, actually, no, that said, I'm glad that the two-handers didn't get any farther than they already are, because they're pretty friggin' strong. But hopefully the guaranteed overpower on all axes and things like that will end up pushing them up a little bit. Though, really, around the end game, I guess they are already shining pretty good. I do know that spears got reworked a little bit, but either way, let's keep going here. So yeah, spears have a higher damage, spears have a higher bonus damage to overhead. It's on par with hammers now, but below axes and swords. Okay, so they just got buffed overall. One-handed spears have a mind bonus instead of avoidance. Pairing with a one-handed spear is supposedly tricky, and this should make them a bit more useful for certain hybrids. And heavy classes that use them often benefit more from magic defense than evasion anyway. So I see this as a pretty just hard bonus to spears across the board here. If you're wondering how big that bonus is, it's about, yeah, it looks like we're looking in 10s and 20s there. By the way, ignore this. You can't make this anymore. This is a really old test save. So, but yeah, it maxes out at 14 by the looks of it. 15 is 15 the highest? Yeah, 15 is the highest mind bonus, but it starts off at 4. So light spear has 4 mind. It goes all the way up to 15. So pretty solid as far as defense goes. Basically, just helps to deal with some of the debuffs you'll be running into. In case you were not aware, as far as mind is concerned, it boosts a whole lot of things. So while its main purpose is spell accuracy, it'll boost some spell damage, but also give you magic evasion and magic damage threshold as well. So pretty handy there. In fact, it feels like a lot of the stuff that's in this has a pretty neat place in the solo run right now. Anyway. Next up, Soul Reaver two-handed katana was renamed to the Lotus Eater. Let's go take a look at that one real quick. By the way, if my voice sounds a little bit funny, the kiddos have been passing around this cold that they got from school. That's been kind of fun. Anyway, said to trap its victims in an endless state of rapture. Is that a good thing? That almost sounds like a good thing. Anyway, so sword that might potentially get used on folks it shouldn't be used on. Aside, let's move on. Katvanga now has 2 uses of Charge Plus instead of 3 uses of Meditate. So basically, that's the equivalent of a Magic Leaf instead of 10% of your MP bar. I mean, it basically does the same thing anyway, so that's fine. Siege bows have less dead zone, lower agility penalty, less weight, and a bit more damage overhead bonus, and +1 overpower. Yeah, they saw some pretty big bonuses, and I'll be honest, I'm a little confused why, because they were already really friggin' strong. Anyway, so yeah, as far as siege bows go, that's these ones right here. So overpower, so they won't get deflected as often. That change I really like. Basically, they're less accurate. They don't fire beyond their firing range, but they can fire vertically a bit better. And wait, that one gives an int bonus? Yeah, I guess the endgame versions would give an int bonus, wouldn't it? But yeah, point being, they're basically your long-range bow. That's why they're the siege bow. They have a harder time getting past armor, but now they can get past parry or deflect a decent bit better. And when they have overhead damage, basically that's just your applications in very specific situations. So your bonus damage is applied after the fact. So like after you get past armor and whatever else, it scales up damage quite a bit. So in this case, the Beira would be unquestionably amazing for anything beast related, because that's 40% bonus damage. You got 40% bonus against lizards with the Nimbus, 40% against golems with the Suzumaki, or Suzumabaki, I believe is how it's supposed to be pronounced. That said, I have to say with golems, I feel like I don't know. I don't feel like you get much bonus damage, like actually through against those guys. Recently, when I was going and testing the Jambla for friggin' the Hulk hands, this thing. Recently, I was going and testing that against golems and did not feel like much was happening there. So I'm not sure if it's just golems have very. I mean, they don't feel like they have insanely high defense. I just can't help but notice that it didn't feel like it was doing very much. But that was the only racial bonus I wasn't seeing much bonus off of. Anyway, moving on. Attack with both casters now costs 24 RT. I believe that's a little bit faster. Definitely seen more AIs running around with those, doing a bit more stuff. Malediction, innate ranged attack now scales with no stats, but also ignores defense. That should be interesting. Right, Holy Crown has 2 uses of Leech. I believe that was actually going back to an older version of it, too. Let's see here. So yeah, 2 uses of Leech. So just basically takes MP, it also absorbs MP on hit. And as you can see, there's actually another one here. We haven't gotten to this one yet. But let's see, added Raven Corona, a dark version of the Holy Crown, also crafted with Helman Sheridian. So this gives you Reflect Magic, has a hobbling effect if you were to use it, and makes you slightly more racist against fairies for reasons. Very big agility bonus, very big mind bonus, huge luck bonus. Actually, I believe this potentially increases the maximum luck that you can stack in the game. Because I believe that's like the 3rd piece of equipment to give you a really massive luck bonus. Okay, moving on. So, added Soul Reaver, a one-handed sword with the old Snapdragon ability for all those that still yearn for having a sword named Butt Clencher. Weapons like that were removed because they can't be balanced properly in regards to each other, but one is just fine. Unfortunately, it had to replace Mateus in the item table, so it will have to be reacquired if you had it. Might make a code for that. But yeah, kind of an oddly specific situation. But yeah, if you had a Mateus in your save file, it will now not be there. But yeah, as far as these things go, yeah, they are very, very difficult to balance, as I was talking about earlier. Basically, if you have somebody with completely maxed out stats, like if we were to do a little bit of trickery here. Alright, and we're back. So after a little bit of trickiness here, I went and created a character with maxed out stats, and then you wind up with something wacky like this. So once again, just random element, random racial thing. All of this stuff, you can look up tables online for like just what kind of stuff can potentially roll for what potential different classes. Like I believe Rune Fencers were generally the best for it because they had the biggest availability of potential options. But you may have to re-roll it a few times if you're really going for something specific here. But for example, I mean, this crap is something you could achieve in vanilla, which again, you don't have to raise up any actual skills. This was just base stats. I forget if skills could potentially do anything for this particular calculation. But yeah, 120 attack, 120 defense. Not amazing as far as the attack goes, but the amount of damage overhead you get is just nuts because you start off with, you start off with 40 against everything. Plus, I believe it additionally scales with that particular element to give you even more. Like, I believe it scales that number up off your augments. And then yeah, if you have a racial one that matches up with what you're using it for, it could potentially be interesting there. I did test it just now with the Fire Crest to see if maybe it was just a glitch with the Void Ring, but no, apparently currently this thing doesn't actually take weight into consideration. It could be due to the fact that you could create a weapon like this, though, I mean, the amount of time it would take, like even the solo run with one character that I've been trying to raise up with stat cards and items and whatever else for, like, I think that run's been going on for like a year now. Even they couldn't actually get maxed out, so it's unlikely you would ever get anything like this, but, you know, it would basically be... What's funny is it's not even the best weapon in the game by quite a large margin at this point, even with everything maxed out. Even as far as the one-handers go, I mean, you're already getting friggin' like 164 attack plus 50% plus an unknown augment scaling bonus off this thing right here. If you're specifically looking for a one-handed version, you got 140 with about 50, 48 plus unknown for dark scaling off this thing. So it's not like it'll ever be a super amazing weapon, but whoever uses it will be nigh invincible. Also, kind of the one thing that it was useful for in vanilla was the fact that you could always use them at level 1. These ones are locked at level 30. So some of that might potentially be a leftover. Here, let me double check if the... No, the Mateus is weight 6. So, yeah. Truth be told, I don't know why this, like, even recovery time cost is redonkulous on this thing. So it's strictly a meme weapon. Let's just put it that way. You may get some very oddly specific bonus off it. Like, I plan to find some use for it in the solo run just for the hell of it. But, like, most endgame weapons are giving you immunities to different stuff, giving you different kinds of usabilities, like skills you wouldn't be able to use on that class. Which, by the way, funny thing, for anyone that criticized this game for not having the amount of skills or whatever else is FFT, A, almost every skill is in here. B, a lot of the items give you use effects, which end up having a very similar effect. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's just something I find funny. But even if you're looking for damage overhead, like, the friggin' Dragon Slayer at this point has 130% bonus damage. Like, yeah. I mean, granted, that would be against dragons, but in most cases, you're still getting 50% bonus damage. This thing is functionally a finisher with every swing. And actually, with the recent reworks to a few things, one thing that I found particularly interesting is in terms of weapon rolls, if we... Hang on, where's the other one? So, before, I was saying that the Fafnir kind of was in a odd position where the Dragon Slayer could do its job better. Honestly, the Fafnir is just the more evolved version of the Dragon Slayer at this point. So the Dragon Slayer, hard to hit things with, really high standard attack power, really good damage overhead, but the thing is just chonky as all hell. I mean, it's weight 20 plus 54 to swing that dang thing. Meanwhile, you go over to the Fafnir, sure, it's got about 60-something less attack on there, but you're still getting massive damage overhead, 70% against dragons in this case, plus wind scaling, plus it's got very good accuracy on it, plus a int bonus, plus howl for that scare effect, plus gets rid of curses, so that's not super annoying. Anyway, I just gotta say that of all of the versions of the Fafnir, this is probably the most worthwhile. This specifically comes to mind because recently I was playing through Tactics Ogre Classic on the PS1 there. Oh my goodness, was the Fafnir in that one, or hang on, how did they put it? The Farnil or something? I don't know. It had some weird translation, like the weird old English translations, and the thing was just kind of pointless. Anyway, moving on. Next up, added the Tirana Arcana. It drops from the Lore Master in Chapter 4 for Rampa 15, Wonder of the Gods. That was that other Map 15 thing, but what is it? What is Tirana? Well, we'll find out what Tirana is. Let's keep going. Removed the Oathblade's mark. Some might be a little bit confused on that. Added Primal Orbs used in crafting forbidden spells, which moves us on to classes. So most casters that use projectile spells got the Mark ranged attack that does nominal damage and inflicts Rupture. Its main purpose is to be used with the Trajectory skill to show if your projectile spell will hit. Keep in mind that the starting point of projectile spells is above the user's head, so they might go over some obstacles that would hit. Or that Mark would hit. Most casters also have a bit higher strength and dex. So basically it just means that they'll do a little bit of damage, potentially. This leads to a funny thing where fairies will oftentimes just like laser pew-pew people from far away. Alright, so first thing to show actually here with Malediction, as you can see, basically just does a kind of flat damage against a lot of things. I kind of feel like in some cases this might lead to some pretty funny results, because I'm not sure what exactly is causing him to do like 140, 120, whatever damage against certain things. It might actually be health scaling now that I'm looking at it. No, actually, it doesn't seem like it is. So I couldn't tell you what on earth is causing him to do over 100 damage with this dang thing, but potentially might be worth mentioning in the bug reports. Okay, so this is what the mark looks like. Basically, just do a little pew-pew, you point at somebody, and it's like, well, is the projectile spell going to hit there or not? This is something that presumably was actually intended to be a feature in the vanilla game. Because interestingly, when they gave skills to pretty much every class in the game, Trajectory was on that list. Now, it could have just been that, you know, this was a happy little coincidence. It could have just been that they completely forgot to add this as a feature, or it was unintended and, you know, they just looked at friggin' 50-plus classes and were like, screw it, whatever. Everyone gets trajectory, we don't care if it's useful or not. In most cases, it seemed like there was actually a point to some of the weird stuff they gave all these different classes, but anyway, as far as this goes, all it does, you just do this. It gives them rupture a good bit of the time. You just kind of aim at somebody. It helps with projectiles when you don't know if you're going to be able to make the shot. But it's a neat little change on there. I forget. I don't think they get access to the Scout Helm, which might potentially be pretty interesting for casters. Just kind of like go for your Magneto build, you know. Either way, just kind of cool there. Now, the other thing that's going to get mentioned a decent bit here is going to be the Paladins. We're just going to go ahead and leave them doing their thing in the background here. I'll just go ahead and set Bayan up for some AI and keep going down this list. All right, so next up, the female Berserker got renamed to the Mynad, or I think that's Mynad. Dragoon got a stat boost worthy of an elite knight. Their skills are still very specialized, but it should make them more useful when there's no monsters around. They also got Rampart Aura 2 and Innate Wade. So that should be just kind of more useful for making them generalists. I'm kind of wondering, yeah, so Rampart 2 just kind of makes them better at holding spots. Innate Wade is an interesting one, but I guess they are, you know, monster hunters, so it would make sense that they'd be willing to get themselves dirty. But yeah, as far as their stab boosts, they have been feeling noticeably stronger, so there's that. By the way, just ignore the fact that there's like 20 different cheats activated on this thing right now. They're just kind of doing their thing in the background. Everyone gets skill rank ups. It's mostly just benefiting the AI at this point. But had to test it out. Alright. Alright, Warlock gained access to Few Souls. They lacked a ranged option that would allow them to farm TP in a midline Golem support role. That's an interesting one, and I'm kind of curious if it was there as just, like, there's been a running joke about a Warlock gunner for a really long time now, so it's like, it's good in terms of their role. It's just kind of funny, and I like the idea that, I mean, the Warlock is basically supposed to be the Indiana Jones of this universe, that they're going into all these ruins and getting all these crazy spells and stuff like that. They literally specialize in the cut content abilities, and I guess it kind of makes sense to be like, hey, found a gun in here. Who knows who made this? I mean, granted, it's kind of funny that they sort of invent and discover guns at the same time in this universe. Anyway, Angel Knight gains access to one-handed hammers. That might be a nod to Hawkmen using hammers. I don't know. Female Juggernaut was named to the Titania. Neat. Trickster and Warden gained access to Clarity 2. Alright, fair enough. Now, here is the big meaty one. Because Paladin was lacking a bit in identity, we had more Holy Knights than Skyrim releases. Truth. The class got merged with Paragon, so White Knight is a more versatile version of the Knight, and the Paladin is a specialist. The class comes in two flavors and can be built around Spears and Lightning or Swords and Divine, with Ravenous coming spec for the former and Lands for the latter. The female version was renamed to Freya to reflect that, and the final Valkyrie upgrade from OB64. And yeah, that's actually a really neat thing, because it basically allows Lands to actually be viable. Part of his whole issue up to this point is the fact that he had this super specialized class. You got him about 4 battles before the end of the game, and yeah, what's he got exactly? Like, oh, I hope you like leveling him up from level 1. In fact, whenever you unlock him, the cutscene even basically acknowledges this. Like, oh man, he was so good. It's such a shame that he got hit in the head when we did Hanging Gardens, and now he just got amnesia and just lost all his skills. Crazy how that works. Like, why didn't you just level him up then? It's weird. Although I guess at that point they would have had to auto-level everybody else, and it would have been weird, so whatever. There's a lot of mechanical reasons why that probably wouldn't have worked. But it's just cool because, yeah, now you can get Ravenous early on. You can use her with Paragon. You get all these cool new abilities and things. Basically, yeah, they come with some of those special moves from FFT, like the sword moves. They come... yeah, this guy actually does quite a decent bit of damage with this thing. If you're wondering what's going on with that scaling, by the way, it just occurred to me that double hit is insane. I keep forgetting that it has that because I'm just imagining it's the standard version. By the way, some things did get changed for this guy as well. We'll get to that in just a moment. So, Paladin lost access to all weapons except for one-handed swords and spears, and also various skills including Challenge, which was kind of pointless, Check, which, I mean, other classes can use something similar, Guardian Force. I kind of feel like he probably should have kept Guardian Force. Well, actually, I mean, it is what gets him killed, after all. Vigorous Attack, yeah, who needed that? And gained access to Lightning Magic, Clarity 3, Efficacy 2, Stormbrand, Consecrate Dead, and Blood Price. So Stormbrand, here, let me take a look at his skills real quick. Man, this is given such a completely skewed opinion over how good this build should probably be. Okay, here, let's take a look at his skills real quick. So Stormbrand gives a True Strike and Lightning Bringer. Interestingly, it does allow you to inflict a lightning averse. So, yeah, that's kind of unexpected, because I didn't think you could actually tie those two things together like that. But yeah, very useful if you want to use burst moves, especially, I would imagine. And then Shell Bust over here inflicts Breach, and it clears the user of debuffs. So it's a little bit of a, kind of like a twist on what the FFT version was. And then you still have access to the extra moves here, so Smite gives light damage to a single target plus Bind. Purgatory deals light and may inflict Fear, which is pretty cool. And then you got your standard moves here. That's interesting that they got moved around so much. Alright, moving on. Alright. So, they have access to One-Handed Sword, Minor Finishers, Smite, and Purgatory, 2 Spear Finishers, which are Bolt Strike and Storm Rider. Cool. I don't have those on them right now. Their Divine Spell set is similar to Paragon with the addition of, which this is odd, should be up there, Heal 1 and 2, but without Apocrypha. Their Lightning set is more on the offensive side with all buffs and debuffs. Burst 1-2, Apocrypha 1, as well as the unique spell Tirana. Okay, we'll take a look at that in just a sec. White Knight lost access to Consecrate Edge and Guardian Force, and gained access to Instill Light and Vigorous Attack. With the way Consecrate Edge works now, it would push them into light element weapons too much, and the class is Power to Spare. Yeah, no kidding. Consecrate Edge basically, like, it carried the solo for quite a while here. And there's so many changes, dang it, people are going to ask that to be started from scratch, aren't they? Buccaneer lost access to Blood Price. The class already gains more TP than it needs. He got Fumarole instead, so that's that, I believe that's like a Breaching Grenade or something like that. Or, no, it's basically a anti-spell accuracy grenade at long range. Geomancer gained access to Fists. By the way, is it stuck on a text box? It sure does. Sure is. Buccaneer lost, yeah, we already covered that. Geomancer gained access to Fists. That's neat. I guess it gives them a nice little synergy with the Jamlaflor Garger or whatever. Commando lost Booby Trap and got Sneak Attack. Well, there goes that reference. Cyclops can now equip circlets. They wear them on their wrists, though. They also gained access to Clarity 3 and Efficacy 2. Their skills got reworked as they were a bit confusing. Stinky this, smelly that. Truth. Yeah, in fact, I was telling the guy the other day, this is the only game I can think of where an actual ability is to have one of your units go and terrify somebody with their balls. If we include 3 activities and magic, they had too many skills, so their special attacks got reduced to 3. They now have Pile Driver, which I believe is a knockout punch, Cross Chop, and Bad Breath. Has somebody... Yeah, Cross Chop, I wonder if you're feeling Pokemon on that one. Their spells were very similar to Warden, so their set is now area spells, summons, and minor buffs and debuffs. Interesting. Okay, so they're definitely completely out of that category of just better Terra Knight at this point. Alright, now spells and abilities. First tier of projectile spells has +1 range. Winter Siege is single target only, so that's the one that gives you Battering Ram. Added Tirana, a lightning spell that teleports a single enemy anywhere within their movement range and deals lightning damage. Okay, that's kind of giving me... God, what's that one ability from Fellseal? It makes me think of that, where you just, like, teleport and smash somebody. Shell Bust, it doesn't affect the light averse anymore. It's actually not light scaling anymore. Uplift ability on boots grants Levitate and Renewal. It's actually not just on boots. Uplift is on the Cloud Ring and the boots. I'm not sure if that was intentional, but either way, the cloud stuff, it's a bit more useful. And Kindle... or the enkindle ability used on Boots and Trailblazer was renamed to Emblaze and grants +2 move instead of renewal. Definitely won't say no to that, so that's pretty darn neat. Frostblink Sword Art was renamed to Smite. Hellcry was renamed to Purgatory. Added the Bolt Strike Spear Art that deals damage in a line and may inflict Shackle. I wonder if he's calling these Spear Arts because of Vagrant Story. Alright. Added Stormrider Spear that deals damage up to 3 times to random targets in a large area, which actually Stormrider is currently being reworked. I understand it had some kind of bug with it, so expect that one to change. Added Stormbrand, a short-range active skill that grants the user True Strike and Stormbringer with a chance to inflict lightning averse in an area. Consecrate Edge works in a similar way to the above, except it grants Strengthen and Lightbringer with a chance for light averse. Covenant now affects enemies. I don't remember what Covenant does. Dragonfly costs 40 TP. Yeah, hopefully that'll cause dragons to stop spamming it so much. Turn Undead has 60% chance of working. I think it was 100% chance before. Sweaty Palms renamed to Pile Driver. Reeking Meatballs reworked to Cross Chop, a double attack that deals slashing damage. Neat. Bad Breath costs 100 TP and 30 recovery time. And then, lastly, racial templates. Denim lost access to Paladin and Astromancer. Well, darn. I was about to go try Paladin for the solo. Ravenous got access to Paladin. When you load an old save, she will be in Void Knight class because Paragon got voided. The class should still be functional enough to do the job until you can get some Holy Knight marks. And then Cressida got access to Astromancer. Alright. Cool. So you, once again, can potentially get a unit way earlier to get some of those crazy endgame classes. Alright, so next up, let's move up to the 2 patches. Bear in mind, there probably will be a 980C pretty soon here. So, A, fixed Ravenous not actually being able to change into Paladin. Well, that was embarrassing. Fixed several instances of wrong skill costs and descriptions. Alright, fair enough. And then for 980B, fixed the recovery time for some endgame spears. Consecrate Edge was renamed to Guiding Light. The skill has other effects, and it's easy to mix it up with Consecrate Dead if you're using both. Truth. Fixed a bug with Guiding Light and Stormbrand where they were buffing enemies. They will now buff allies as well as the user, but the duration is lower than Resonance skills. Alright, fair enough. So, actually that might be... okay, never mind. There might not be a 980C immediately. It might have gotten fixed here. But either way, so there's a lot of cool new stuff to play with. Again, I was originally planning to put aside the solo until everything got done, like, fully for the end game, but dude, there's so much new stuff to try now. So this is looking great. You know what? Just every time that I see this mod do something new, it's awesome. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Can't wait to try this stuff out, and yeah. For the question that seems to come up every time one of these come out, should I try One Vision, or should I try the vanilla game? Honestly, here's the thing. With vanilla, like, you've got a bunch of quirky stuff that they referenced all over the series and whatever else. Basically, vanilla has a lot of the crazy quirky stuff, and then if you really like builds and if you like the game to actually feel balanced, then you go for One Vision. Like, that's the best way to put it. In both versions, you're gonna have the same story. The only difference is game balance. Like, technically speaking, if you like being on the same level as the AI, like you like to have everybody on an even playing field, this one. If you're looking for a bit of an advantage, then you would go for vanilla. Like, if you're really, really into metagaming stuff and coming up with crazy answers to all kinds of different stuff, you either challenge run the original game, or you play One Vision. Or, you know, if you really want to, well, if you really like having minimal effects from a lot of your skills, then you go for vanilla as well. Mostly it's just because they were trying to balance that whole thing where you've got like 8 different things potentially affecting how much damage you're going to do to something. And so you're trying to balance how on earth would you ever balance having like racial skills, weapon skills, different defense types, different armor types, like different weather effects, different tile effects, different class effects. Like, it was, it's just crazy how much stuff goes into calculating anything for this game. So yeah, generally speaking, OV, it's the one with the better balance. Some of the stuff like, in general, tries to be a bit more consistent about everything, and it adds so many more options. That's for sure. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore both versions, but dude, every time something new comes out for this mod, it's just immediately an instant revival and immediately have to go and do another run, you know? Alright, so you guys have a good one, take care, and see you next time. Bye.